I know this one's gonna get a little weird, but Brian Von VA here. What are the worst game rules you've ever seen? Cyberpunk Red's cover rules make me physically angry. Me too! In Red, cover is a binary system. You are either in cover or you aren't. If you are in cover, defined as totally concealed behind anything that can stop a bullet, then you cannot be shot at all. If you are not in cover, any part of your body is exposed or the thing you are hiding behind cannot completely stop a bullet, then you can be shot at no penalty. In addition, because you can move, do an action, and then use the rest of your movement, this means you can hide behind a stone wall, pop out to shoot, then step back behind cover, and you cannot be shot. The only way to shoot someone who is in cover is to either hold an action to shoot them when they pop out, which means you yourself are exposed, and if you fail to kill them with your held action, you can also be shot at no penalty, or completely destroy the cover they are hiding behind. Now, getting into that, inanimate objects, including cover, do not have any form of damage reduction, only hit points based on material and thickness. But the HP values are pathetically low. A bank vault door, for example, has 50 HP. This means you can destroy it with a single burst of fire from an assault rifle. In addition, the book notes that even if you destroy the cover with damage to spare, any excess damage does not transfer to the person behind it. So if a person hides behind a thin wooden table, 5 HP, I can burst fire an assault rifle into it, roll 40 damage, destroying the table, which instantly crumbles to dust. The remaining 35 points of damage is then not applied to the guy behind it and is wasted. So he can then use his turn to stand up and walk behind another table, forcing me to repeat the process. The exception here is grenades, which can blow up cover and then deal full damage to the person behind it. Unlike an anti-tank rifle, which will destroy the cover, but then the bullet will miraculously stop midair, leaving the target untouched. Ah, magic bullets. Here's an older one, but in Call of Cthulhu, there used to be separate skills for kick and punch. So you would get absurd situations where people only kicked for melee attacks. They fixed this in the most recent edition by consolidating the 2-in-1 brawling skill. However, there is still the awkward separation of climb and swim. Delta Green combined those into one as well, athletics, which is a much better skill. This one is debatably realistic given a 12th century setting, but Burning Wheel has read and write as separate skills, meaning someone who may know how to read without being able to write their own name and vice versa. D&D 3.5 and Pathfinder, probably earlier editions of D&D as well, have had rules published for characters with lower and higher starting age than normal, which affects the stats they start with. An older character got penalties in physical stats but bonuses to wisdom, reflecting them being more frail due to advanced age, but also having more life experience. The problem is that in D&D rules, wisdom doubles as your perception stat, which meant that getting older actually made your senses sharper. Also, one edition of D&D, pretty sure it was 2nd edition, did include rules for rolling random character age, with different classes having different modifiers. Wizards would have the highest modifier to reflect the amount of studying needed to become one, so wizard characters would on average be older than other classes. Barbarian, on the other hand, had the lowest modifier since you don't really need any special training to become a barbarian. Just get angry and swing an axe. That makes sense, but the funny thing is that it was entirely possible to roll a barbarian character as young as 13. And since in this case character age was pure fluff and had no in-game effect, you could totally play a superhumanly strong barbarian girl and be entirely consistent with the rules. Hell, you could end up doing that unintentionally if you used the random table and got a low result for age. In 5th edition, according to Raw, the Revivify spell doesn't actually do anything because it targets a creature that has died. The problem there is the rules are very clear that a dead creature is a corpse, which is an object. Therefore, targeting a creature that has died should, by the wording, be impossible. Jeremy Crawford confirmed these definitions, but clearly this is not the intent. Likewise, the term item is not a defined term in 5th edition, meaning that a creation bard can create a newsworthy event, something of concern, or a pair of creatures in a romantic relationship in addition to anything that appears on a list. In SJ Games' Car Wars, it is possible for a driver in the span of 6 seconds to accelerate from 0 to 90 miles an hour, perform as many as 25 driving maneuvers safely, and fire on 3 successive targets long enough to receive a sustained fire to hit bonus on each, all while maintaining a steady stream of conversation with his allies. I'm just picturing GTA and Death Race meets frickin' Far Cry 5 or something. For clarification, SJ Games, that is Steven Jackson Games, systems usually use 1-second turns. To get the sustained fire to hit bonus, you have to target the same target for at least 1 second, meaning you can fire at a target for 2 seconds to get the bonus on the second attack and then immediately switch to a new target. In FFG's 40k RPGs, Dark Heresy, Rogue Trader, etc., fall damage is one of the deadliest things around, as it scales very quickly based on the distance you fall and ignores armor. It's entirely unreasonable, but it gets a bit silly when the best way to kill a Daemon Prince or similarly big tough monster is to push it off the roof of a 2-story building. That'll deal considerably more damage than shooting it with a plasma gun or a laser cannon. Also, given how dodging and parrying works, you can normally dodge parry only one enemy's attacks per turn, though there is an ability that lets you dodge or parry multiple times even if it's limited by your weapon skill or agility modifier, and is also an expensive or high-rank ability. Multiple weak enemies are often far more dangerous than one strong one for characters that have good combat skills. This is especially true in the systems where Righteous Fury or Critical Hits system got reworked. At least with Space Marines, they have enough armor and toughness to largely negate hits from weak enemies, though a lot of dice thrown at them still threatens a crit, which can be very nasty. But in Black Crusade, it was pretty easy to build a human character that could duel a Greater Daemon to a standstill, Slanesh-aligned renegade with high dodge and agility, and pick agility as your favored skill for an extra degree of success. Chef kiss. Mwah. But it got mogged by a squad of guardsmen because you're still a baseline human with 3, maybe 4 toughness modifier and not many hit points at all. So anything you can't dodge, that's gonna hurt a lot. I actually played a character like that, except it was even worse since I was a weapon skill focused coordinate renegade, hopefully I pronounced that correctly, and you can't parry bullets. I'm trying to imagine somebody whipping a sword around to try to deflect or parry a bullet like in the original Wolverine Deadpool little clash they had. Also, I could solo orc war bosses or space marines in melee, but once got my leg blown off by a single bolt pistol shot. Yeah, I'd do it. Exalted 3rd Edition has the same problem. Falling damage bypasses all standard mechanical barriers to damage. You cannot soak it, and there are no rules for using the acrobatic skill or even acrobatics charms, except for the one charm that specifies it reduces or negates falling damage to reduce said damage. So, in a high-flying, super-powered system of demigods doing anime bullshit at each other non-stop, the most lethal fucking thing you can do is shove the god you're fighting off of a 50-foot drop. The guy who can wade through lava and wrestle T-Rexes breaks his leg falling off a roof. The guy who can super speed, flash step, and literally teleport dies when he gets blasted off a cliff. Man, that would make Dragon Ball Z way more interesting. Savage Worlds' encumbrance rules are really fucking bad! War horses can only carry 140 pounds before being encumbered and slowed down. A character with minimum strength, D4, spends half his carrying capacity solely on his jacket, pants, and hat. Hordes of Things has a combat outcome called Recoil, whereby the losing unit moves its base depth backwards until it's flanked in BTB, in which case it is destroyed. The issue is, what if it's shot from the flank? According to the rules, it just wanders backwards a base depth without moving away from the shooting unit. Anyone with basic rank and flank experience should be able to see the issue. You want to just back right up into me, baby? Because that's the way it's gonna happen, you little shite. I just remembered that 3rd edition psionic combat existed. To give a summary, in addition to normal actions and combat, psionic characters had to deal with psionic combat. Now, psionic combat can best be described as, well, dumb. All psionic characters choose psionic, attack and defense modes. Then they shoot invisible beams at each other and make pointless contested rolls imposing penalties on a failure. These attack and defense modes took up psi points and gave minimal benefit. But if you didn't use them, then any psionic monster, who usually didn't need to spend psi points on this by the way, can brain blast you with no save and make you suck for the rest of combat. Your attack modes were practically useless on creatures without psionics because, well, reasons. This was changed in 3.5, thankfully. In Pathfinder 1st edition, choking someone out literally does not work. It simply cannot be done, even against extremely low CR enemies, unless you get lucky. It's statistically near impossible against anything approaching your level. I did the math a while ago, so my recollection of the rules probably isn't exact, but it goes something like this. Putting someone in a sleeper hold is a combat maneuver. Combat maneuvers are attacks. In order to successfully choke someone out, you need to succeed enough of those attack rolls in a row to trigger the suffocation rules. And characters can hold their breath for a number of rounds equal to double their con before suffocation. So even for the lowest level NPCs, this is going to be at least, if not over, 20 rounds. Failing one of these rolls allows them to get a breath and resets the timer. Natural ones on attack rolls are auto fails. Therefore, even the most buffed out, high-level 26 strength combat maneuvered spec fighter still needs to roll a d20 a minimum of 20 times without ever getting a 1, which will automatically fail and restart the timer regardless of his bonus, to choke out a house cat. And it takes him 20 rounds of combat to do it. God bless it. Really? I need to look this up. Now, did I mention it costs 3 feats to even have access to this ability? In fairness, the intent of the ability seems to be as sort of improved pin, where you can roll to pin the person and also prevent them from casting spells with a verbal component. But the fact that these are now the only rules in the game for choking someone out means that by adding this feat, Paizo's effectively not only made it impossible to choke someone out without a feat investment by rules as written, but also made that nearly impossible to do even with one. A reasonable GM would probably recognize this and is just going to house rule something more reasonable if their rogue says, "I want to choke out their god." But the fact remains. Hey everybody, Brian Von VA checking in after the vid. Please make sure to leave a like, subscribe, ring that bell, and of course, let us know in the comments below. What are some of the worst game rules you've ever seen in a TTRPG? Anywhere, any edition of any game, we want to know. We love you all. Please be safe, be happy. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.